Each day, 12 children die from gun violence in America. More than 394,000 students have experienced gun violence at school since Columbine. On December 14, 2012, Adam Lanza misused his Second Amendment right, causing an unthinkable tragedy, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. This event changed the way people thought of gun violence and opened their eyes to see that changes needed to be made regarding gun rights, school safety policies, and mental health. While we, the people, do have the right to keep and bear arms, it is our responsibility to use them correctly. This shows that the shooter violated the students' and staff's rights. Long before the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, the shooter, Adam Lanza, spent years there as a student. During his childhood years, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. While in his teens, his mental health deteriorated significantly, leading to social isolation. Adam developed an obsession with previous mass shootings and killing sprees, while students, staff, and families at Sandy Hook went along in their day-to-day routine. On the morning after it, Principal Dawn Hochberg continued to state how great the children were, while the administrators made the morning announcements. In fact, parents were coming from dropping their children off at work and or running errands, blind to what was about to unfold at Sandy Hook Elementary. As for Adam Lanza, he shot and killed his mother with the .22 caliber Savage Mark II rifle in her bed on the morning of December 14, 2012. Afterwards, he destroyed his computer's hard drive, but little did Nancy know, her son would be using the firearms she had purchased to commit mass murder at Sandy Hook Elementary and abusing his Second Amendment right because she was irresponsible with hers by allowing someone who was mentally unstable to have access to those heavy-duty assault weapons. Soon after killing his mother, around 9:30 a.m., Lanza entered Sandy Hook Elementary, armed with an AR-15, 2 semi-automatic pistols, and almost 500 rounds of ammunition, with his mind set to kill hundreds of children and staff. He first shot and killed Dawn Hochberg, the principal, then murdered Mary Sherlock, the school psychologist, after they entered the hallway to see where the loud shattering and banging was coming from. Lanza shot and wounded 2 other staff members. 9:35 a.m. is when the first 911 call to Newtown Police was received.
The first alert.
6-7 Sandy Hook School. Callers indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building.
Then Lanza burst into one of the first grade classrooms, gunned down Lauren Russo, the teacher, Rachel Davino, the behavioral therapist, and 14 students. 9:37 a.m. Lanza invaded another classroom filled with first graders. The majority of the students hid. Ann Murphy, a special education aide, wrapped her arms around 6 students in an attempt to protect them. Lanza murdered Victoria Soto, the classroom teacher, Murphy, and the 6 students she failed to protect. 9:40 a.m., the first responders finally arrived at Sandy Hook Elementary, 2 minutes and 41 seconds after the first radio broadcast of the shooting. When Adam Lanza saw the officers, he pulled out a handgun and made himself his last victim. Soon after, the students began to walk outside, but their teachers told them to cover their eyes so they wouldn't have the images of dead bodies seared into their young minds.
You walked out. You were told to close your eyes.
Yeah.
Put your hand on a friend in front of you so you wouldn't see anything. You opened your eyes.
I did.
And since administrators had been making morning announcements, when Lanza entered the school building after shattering the large plate glass window, everyone heard the shots.
This was probably, I would say, like the most traumatizing part of the whole thing, because we heard our principal and she told us, like, kids, like, go hide into your safe spots, and then we heard, like, a popping sound, and then the phone, like, kind of went off.
You actually heard the gunshots?
Mm-hmm.
After hearing the explosion of glass, gunshots echoing throughout the hallways and classrooms, teachers ushered students into bathrooms, closets, and barricaded their doors using the tools they learned during lockdown drills. but other educators and students had been gunned down and killed during that time, and their screams and cries were heard by everyone. The others in the school had to listen to the screams and cries of those they cared about being slaughtered. Teachers tried to keep their students in safe places, keep them as quiet as possible. Teachers were scared for their lives. They were in shock, filled with fear in a life or death moment, trying to protect themselves as well as their students, because it was truly their responsibility to do so, although everyone's rights were being violated at the time. And with every gunshot heard came more fear from the students. They questioned if they were going to make it, as students often do now. While some were lucky enough to just have to hear the sounds, other students had to horrifically listen and watch their friends, classmates, and teachers die, knowing they were next. In late January of 2013, 11 families of the victims went to Washington, D.C. to meet privately with Vice President Biden, members of Congress, and cabinet members to listen and to learn about mental health and school safety policies. While Obama made a speech in Connecticut,
We gather here in memory of 20 beautiful children and 6 remarkable adults.
Vice President Biden worked to reduce
They lost their lives
gun
in
violence
school
and fought to
as there have
ban
been any school.
assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. The shooting forced parents across America to wonder whether the goodbye hug they gave their child before school would be the last they ever had. Families grieved their loss and processed the event as a whole after it happened, and how it affected them in their day-to-day life and experiences.
What do you miss most about Avi?
The weight of her arms in my body when she's hugging me. It was hard for months, and it's turned into years, and it's hard.
Gun violence continued and worsened in and out of schools. President Joe Biden proclaimed a day of remembrance on December 14, 2022, after the Sandy Hook school shooting. Also, student survivors are reminded of this tragedy and the loss of their graduating class every day.
Going into graduation, we all have very mixed emotions.
The shooting was kind of like our most core memory growing up. And I think that took away a lot of the joy that we could have experienced when we were 6 years old. And I can't really remember many times before the shooting,
because so many school shootings have occurred after this event. Now, school systems have had to normalize more school lockdown drills in case of a shooter. Third, the Sandy Hook school shooting changed society as a whole, caused school shootings to be normalized in society, and caused parents to question their kids' safety. For example, teachers are now responsible to make sure their students know and understand lockdown drills, and schools now have to set aside more money for security systems. In addition, politicians have the responsibility to ensure the people's safety and make or adjust right and fair gun rules and regulations.
We bear responsibility for every child because we're counting
but
on
society has the right to ensure that the government is upholding their responsibilities. Furthermore, parents across the world now have to wonder when their kids go to school, will that be my last day seeing my family? But we as a society should not have to question the safety of the people we care about when we send them to school, because schools should be a place for education, love, growth, and compassion. However, they no longer are because of the lack of gun control and responsibility when using their Second Amendment right. In conclusion, the Sandy Hook school shooting truly impacted society and the way we think about these tragedies today.